Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a marketing strategy that has totally changed our relationship with medicine. It's a strategy that doesn't just sell you a pill. First, it has to sell you on the idea that you're sick.
Kind of sounds like a riddle, right? But this is the key to a multi-billion-dollar playbook. We're about to see how the most effective way to sell a cure is to first convince millions of people that they have the disease in the first place. To really get how this works, we actually need to go back in time, all the way back to the 1920s, to meet a guy who wasn't in the business of medicine at all. Nope, he was in the business of selling pianos. So, this is Edward Bernays, often called the father of modern public relations. And his big idea completely revolutionized advertising. He believed that the most powerful way to sell something wasn't to just push it on people directly, but to create the desire for it indirectly. And this gets right to the heart of his entire philosophy. Bernays argued, you don't just push a product. Instead, you shape the world around the customer. You shape their desires, their needs, so that they come looking for your product all on their own. So, how did he sell more pianos for his client? Well, it was simple but absolutely brilliant. He didn't advertise the pianos. No, instead, he promoted a whole new trend for sophisticated homes, the music room. And once people were sold on the idea of having a music room, well, the need for a piano suddenly felt like it was, in his own words, their own idea. And this brings us right back to modern medicine. See, that exact same insight is what powers a strategy we now call disease branding. First, marketers build the music room by raising all this awareness and concern about a condition. And only then do they offer us the piano, the specific drug that just so happens to fit perfectly inside. Now, this strategy has evolved into a whole modern framework, and it's often described with this really simple but powerful analogy: building the lock and key. At its core, disease branding is all about shaping how everyone, from doctors to patients, you and me, thinks about a condition. It can take a bunch of vague symptoms, package them all up as a distinct and serious problem, and then make sure everybody knows about it. And this is that lock and key model in action. You see, the first and most important step is building the lock. That means defining a disease, raising its profile, and making sure it's a recognized problem. It's only after that lock exists in our minds that a company can come along with what looks like the perfect key, their drug. So how do they do this? Well, marketers generally use three core strategies. First, they can take a known but kind of overlooked condition and elevate its importance. Second, they can redefine a condition to reduce stigma, make it easier for people to talk about. And finally, the most ambitious one, they can actually help develop a whole new condition to solve a previously unrecognized unmet need. So what does this actually look like in the real world? Well, the impact has been profound. It's transformed conditions that were once considered rare, or maybe not even medical issues at all, into routine diagnoses. The absolute classic example is halitosis. Before a 1920s Listerine campaign, it was just the Latin word for bad breath. Seriously. But after the campaign, it was a medical condition that needed treatment. And we've seen this same playbook get used over and over again, raising the public profile of conditions like panic disorder, ADHD, and erectile dysfunction, and even helping to define newer ones like PMDD and restless leg syndrome. Okay, so all of this leads to a really central, critical debate. Is this genuine public health progress, or is it just profiteering that turns normal parts of life into medical problems that need to be solved? On one side, you have critics who call it empty profiteering, basically just inventing diseases to sell pills. But on the other hand, proponents argue that these campaigns actually have real benefits. They can raise awareness for conditions that are undertreated, they can reduce the stigma that keeps people from getting help, and they can give us a new language to talk about very real suffering. So here's a final thought for you. The next time you see a health ad, and it seems like it's selling you a problem more than it's selling you a product, you'll know the playbook. You'll see the music room being built right there in front of your eyes. The only question left is, now that you know the strategy, how does that change what you think of the piano?